Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the April TV POA Board meeting. My name is John Orr. I have the pleasure of acting as president for the board this year. I guess we could get started with just getting the minutes from last meeting approved. If I could hear a motion for that.
Second.
Any additions, comments, changes?
Under the engineering services discussion, we need to make it say Kahidi wastewater, not water, where we talked about the task capacity to accept. That discussion was focused on wastewater.
Okay. Can make that change.
And there's a typo I'll give to Karen on the top of page 3. That's it.
Anything else? Nope. Okay. All those in favor of approving the amended minutes? 6-0. Oh. Ed is out of town. Steve had to leave early for a personal matter. So 5-0. We made a quick change to the agenda, moving a couple things up so that Kevin could speak to those right out of the gate here, and then he can be on his way to attend to other business. So Kevin's going to talk about the Blue Book changes, as well as a contractual issue.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Good afternoon. Was asked to make first a brief announcement relative to a contractual matter, potential sale of a commercial parcel that was a development parcel acquired from one of the Cooper Community acquisitions back in 2022. This parcel we've discussed in a number of meetings as P38. It's a 37-acre parcel on Poplar Springs Road adjacent to 444. It's a designated commercial parcel. We have in place what we call a conditional contract right now for sale of that parcel to a third party. I'll note that under this conditional contract, there are a number of contingencies and approvals that are necessary before proceeding. So it's certainly contingent. The buyer has a due diligence period through September 3rd of this year. And during that due diligence period, they have an absolute right to terminate without cause or penalty. So that's why it's really conditional at this point. We don't know for sure if it will proceed to closing. But we'll certainly provide an update after September 3rd if and when the buyer elects to proceed moving forward. So that was the first brief announcement. The second is relative to the approval of the Blue Book revisions. Last month, the board gave preliminary approval to the draft revisions, which were the red line revisions to the Blue Book proposed for this year. During the last open board meeting, I provided an overview of the substantive provisions and revisions within the Blue Book. And then following the last month's open board meeting, the board distributed and circulated those proposed revisions to the community. They were posted on the website. They were also included with the telegram. Any other communication? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so those were the two mediums. And we sought community feedback, community comment during the last 30 days. I will note that through the 30-day period, we received a grand total of 5 comments. So comments were quite limited, and none of which were substantive. They were all, a couple of questions. You missed a period and a comma here and there, but nothing of major substance, no major objections, no major concerns. So, I think that's I think that speaks highly to the process that the ACC followed, and the revisions I think are very worthwhile. As we noted last month at the board meeting, those revisions are a lot of the substantive revisions relate to some of these I&I and drainage issues we've been discussing as a community throughout the year. So I think these are going to be good improvements to the Blue Book, and so today, I think the board is ready to proceed with approval, formal, now that they've been noticed to the community for the past 30 days. So at this point, we can entertain a motion on approval of the Blue Book revisions as proposed.
I move that we approve the Blue Book corrections and additions as proposed.
I'll second.
Any discussion remaining? No? Then all those in favor of approving? 5-0.
Thank you. So we'll move forward. We will finalize those, publish to the community, and the ACC will proceed with implementation. Thank you all.
Thanks, Kevin. I was going to do the opening remarks before the forum. It just made more sense to do that. I started to write down the other day in preparation for this, all the things we're working on, because there's a lot. So I'm going to run through some of the stuff that we're actively working on day in and day out. We talked a lot so far about policy review. We got 6 pages of policies and just the list of policies. So we're going through that. We've assigned Beth Kuberka to kind of project manage that. And her goal is to bring us 5 policies per month for the board to review. Some of these don't require board approval. They're just internal POA policies. Some are board policies that we'll vote on, at the subsequent board meetings. We got a couple for next board meeting. So this will be an ongoing process throughout the year, but there's just a lot of inconsistencies in the policies. Some cases, we're just plugging holes that we see as things have changed, updating technology. Some of these were written in the 90s, and now we have, electronic means of doing some things. So just that kind of stuff. There's a lot to do there. We're actively working on the reserve study update. They're going to do their on-site here by the end of the month, and the goal is to have a first draft of the update by the end of May. And then it's a matter of, reviewing and making sure it's to, all the assumptions are correct and so forth. So hopefully, June-ish, July-ish timeframe, we could have, a presentation of the updated reserve study. The balanced scorecard, we talked about that a couple of times. We're fast-tracking that. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this in conjunction with long-range planning to develop the scorecard. Again, we touched on it. Well, there'll be a lot more next month as we get it a little further down the pipeline. Right now, we're just finalizing the strategies that the POA is going to pursue in the short term. But so there'll be more to come on that, but this is really step one of the planning process. So we changed the planning process last year where we had business plans for every department. We're obviously going to do that again this year, update those business plans, but the balanced scorecard gives the strategies that these business plans try to fulfill. So a lot more to come on that, but this is moving fast. A lot of time has been spent on that. Of course, we have our phase 1 of the business system implementation. Again, fast-tracked to where it's still on track to go live July 1st. So this is a monumental shift from a back office POA working to go from a antiquated AS400 from the 80s to now it's going to be cloud-based and all Windows based system. So it's a monumental shift. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, a lot more that has to happen between now and July 1st, a lot of training. So that's another big one. Phase 2 will be at some point after that where we look to integrate some of our other systems like food service, point of sale, Chelsea, all those ancillary systems will still be separate as they are now. And so we'll work on those in the next phase. Of course, we have Tanasi, everybody knows that, and that's an ongoing big project. We've got our infrastructure projects around water and sewer continue to progress. And then along the lines of that, I've asked the FAC to begin their analysis sooner than later. I know we talked about a mid-year review, but shortly after the last board meeting, I asked them to get started on that analysis now so that we could have a recommendation by mid-year, not just them starting to look at it at mid-year. So, my point was that it's been a year since we did the analysis last year. A lot has changed. We got a lot smarter. So it makes sense to take a deep dive now. Matt has provided additional input for that analysis, and we're going to take more of a holistic approach to cash flow with that analysis. And just stop it at this point. The other one we've been working on is the Kahidi Fire Department. The Kahidi residents have requested that we work out something with the powers that be, whether it's Monroe County, City of Von Orr, Hopewell Fire Department, to try to get better fire and emergency coverage for Kahidi, because it's a combination of all those that provide it right now. So we're working through it. It's very complex because you're dealing with 3 separate entities that have to coordinate to make it happen, but we are actively working on that. And that's just a short list of the stuff that we got going. From my point of view, we're making great progress. We're having fun, right, guys? Tons of fun. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully I'm not wearing them out too much. But anyways, just a quick rundown on that. So at that, we will open it up for public comment. If anybody's got something to say, be sure to turn the mic on, state your name.
Hello, Trudy Roccasalva from Tanasi View Place, and I just wanted to talk about the landscaping and lighting mitigation issues at Tanasi. As I think all of you know, because I've sent emails and letters and text messages and that, currently there's a large floodlight. It's an LED panel screen with 6 LED lights that's heading directly into the homes on Tanasi View Place, and it was installed March 20th. And I understand Beth and Scott have been working on it, but at this point, it's still flooding into the back of our homes, and it renders our decks and our screen rooms unusable. That's the first thing. The second thing is, at the meeting last month here, my husband was told that there's considering taking out the islands in the middle of the new parking lot. And I said, well, that's against the guidelines, because it states that you have to have overstory trees and in the parking lots for every 10 spots. So I went to the Red Book, and in the new Red Book that was deleted, it's Parking Standards, number 10, page 17, and in the old book, which was from May of 16, the 3rd paragraph on the bottom reads, all parking lots shall include landscape islands with appropriate overstory trees in all parking rows with more than 10 consecutive spaces. Landscape islands shall be a minimum of 12 feet in width and depth. That whole paragraph was deleted from the new Red Book. The new Red Book also states that the height of the lights went from 14 feet to 25. So after hearing all this, we were quite dismayed, and we went to Loudoun County Code Department, where we saw the actual plan and where they have what plants are designed for what area. And as you all know, and everyone who's been here and who's watched on TV, my husband, myself, my neighbors have all been please requesting that you make sure that the landscaping between the cart path and the parking lot is sufficient for large evergreens, tall, thick, heavy bushes. So imagine my dismay when I went to Loudoun, and what's planned is a single small strip of single bushes that max out at 3 feet high, junipers. And there's 2 maple trees on each end. And also, to my dismay, looking at the whole plan, all the plants that we have been requesting, the green giants, the Nellie Foster hollies, there's like 30 of each going in, and they're all going in on the 9th hole to stop the golf balls from hitting the cars in the parking lot. Not one on our side to protect the lights. So from what I see, if you're talking only 3 feet high bushes, that's not going to stop any headlights. It's not going to stop the parking lot. And then I was really upset when I saw that it was removed from the Red Book that you don't have to put center islands in anymore with overstory trees. And in the original plan, there was going to be 8 overstory elm trees and all the bushes. So I'm here to see that you will indeed landscape that properly to stop the light mitigation, which is in Loudoun County's book, and light mitigation in our Red Book. Thank you.
Beth, do you want to say anything about, I know our landscaping is not set yet.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the ACC meeting, the landscaping is not set in stone and it's fluid. We most definitely, as we talked to you, that we would be looking at that area. We met with Wells this week about putting in green giants on your side of the parking lot. There are islands. There's 6 of them in the parking lot. Those were not removed. I don't know where that came from, but they have not been removed. And the lights did get raised, but as we said at ACC, we went to a different type of technology. We're going to LED lights versus halogen, and they are smart lights, so they can be controlled. The direction that the light shines, how bright the light is. We have requested from the utilities about if they can do anything additional with the floodlight that is there on a temporary basis through construction. And they said that they would try to look at it, but they can't do a whole lot to it. They won't add a shield because they just said you just can't to that type of light. But we are working on them about can they adjust it a little bit to keep it from shining. But hopefully we're doing good progress and it won't be there too long, but we are working on it.
Good afternoon. Joe Bogardus from Coyote. I'm a member of the ad hoc marketing team. To begin, I'd like to thank the board for initiating these open forums, allowing villagers to offer perspectives on issues and share information with the... Okay. Well, all right. Okay. It's all right. What? Okay, all right. Okay, so I'd like to thank the board for initiating these open forums, allowing villagers to offer perspectives on issues and share information with the board as well as the community. At the upcoming May town hall, Beth Kaburka will deliver our team's report on 2024 performance and the marketing outlook for 2025. Prior to that presentation, I'd like to speak about marketing infrastructure, specifically recognizing the outstanding job our 37 volunteer village tour guides do in welcoming prospective residents to our community. In 2024, 570 tours of the village were completed. The majority, 56%, or 323 tours, were conducted by village volunteers. The balance was completed by realtors. In particular today, the marketing team wanted to acknowledge one of our best and favorite tour guides, Lynn Brinkley. Lynn is a soon-to-be 24-year resident of the village. He joined the tour guide program in 2014, the second year of operation. Before becoming a Tellico villager, Lynn was an honors chemistry teacher for 33 years in the Elgin, Illinois School District. And once an educator, always an educator. For the past 11 years, Lynn has educated 526 tours about Tellico Village. Today, there are 136 village households that learned their first Tellico Village lessons from Lynn Brinkley. That's a conversion rate of 26%. Many of these residents today now populate the leadership ranks of the clubs that make up our social infrastructure, as well as others serve on various advisory committees. When asked why he tours possible new residents, Lynn says, well, it's a lot of fun. It is in a small way, my way to contribute to the betterment of Tellico Village. Lynn, would you please step forward? Beth Kaburka would like to give you a certificate of appreciation from the marketing team for your years of exemplary service to the Village Tour Guide Program. Thank you, Lynn.
I'm the one that gets to stay home without him for a few hours every time he does.
Okay. Gary Zeke, I don't think I'm going to do that, outdo Lynn on that at all. Anyway, I'd like to present a timeline of events in regards to the POA's water system. In November of 2020, the POA signed a new agreement with LUB to construct a 1 million gallon water storage tank on Watt Cemetery Road, a booster pump station, and piping upgrades. All this to service Tellico Village. In May of 21, Jacobs Engineering performed pressure readings throughout the village. And that's an important date that you're going to have to go back to, and I'll go back through. In July and August of 21, LUB received bids for that 1 million gallon water storage tank, booster pump, and piping upgrades. In January of 22, Jacobs Engineering finalized a report using the pressure readings from May of 21. This is a report that has led POA to believe an elevated water tank is needed. In May of 22, at a Loudoun County workshop, POA's Mitzi and Clayton presented water and sewer grant application to the county for the TDAC grant application. A statement, and I'm going to read the statement. After talking with Adam Bryan and Chris Adams with the Jacobs Engineering and Ryan Blake with WK Dickinson Engineering, which is LUB's engineer, we recommend that we address the irrigation going to odd and even water times. They really meant days, but they said times. LUB to get their water tank and booster pump online, meaning constructed, collect data for a designated time, and then enter into the water system model, which is what Jacobs had built, basically, or modeled up, and to decide how to move forward. That was a statement by the engineers for both LUB and Jacobs Engineers. In July of 22, this is after the meeting, after everything's going on, LUB completed the water tank on Watt Cemetery Road and a booster pump station. That booster pump station has 3 pumps that supply a 16-inch line going up over the hill supplying the POA, Tellico Village. In January 23, that was the first rate increases the POA received from LUB for the water tank and booster pumps. And so, when you start looking at it, you say, well, just follow the timeline. The Jacobs report of 2022, which is everything is based on, and even the latest presentation they did at the last PSAC meeting, they didn't change anything. It's never been updated to take into account the LUB improvements, which the POA has agreed to and has been paying the bill for. Never been updated. Jacobs says they need to update it, but they've never done it. The Jacobs report on January 22, it also has not been updated with the latest information on the water line size to the wellness center. And Matt, you gave me the information that the Jacobs report shows a 6-inch line, which you could see in the report, but you had your people actually dig up both the bottom end and the top end and verified it was an 8-inch line. And why is that important? Well, that's the only place in the Jacobs report that showed a low pressure or a fire pressure problem or supply is in the wellness center. So if you bump up the size to an 8-inch, that problem goes away. So, over the last 2 years, our water rates have gone up. The same, we've agreed with LUB, that's being passed on to us, and plus is being marked up even additional. And so with higher pricing, the water demand has happened what? Guess what? It's going down. Is that a surprise? I don't think so. So, I'm requesting the board, the POA needs to implement further restrictions on irrigation timing, as the water system was never designed for unlimited irrigation. We've got even and odd days right now, but what we really need to say is no irrigation from the POA water supply system from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. That was out of Jacobs' report, same report. Not everything in that report was inaccurate or had revisions. that was one of the main things they showed. They even had graphs showing if you shifted the demand, you don't need all the additional water and you don't have any kind of problems. The other thing that POA needs to do is send a letter to TDEC. And this letter needs to state that the water storage requirement is being met by the LUB. The Watt Cemetery Road, per the contract, meets the requirement of TDEC. The POA has been in violation of the TDEC regulations since 2018, per the TDEC letter, July of 2018. And when people say, hey, we could get fined, you could get fined right now because we are not in compliance. We only have a 500,000 gallon water tank, but we do have LUB. All we have to do is send a letter to TDEC and we'll be in compliance. In addition, POA to isolate and take out of service the Chota water tank. People are going to say, oh, we need that water tank. That water tank has got a big problem. One, it's leaking. Two, it has aged water in it. And this water, when I say aged water, means that the chlorine content of the water drops to levels that are below what TDEC says is safe for water usage. So what the POA is doing, and Matt, you can confirm this, is you're wasting substantial amounts of water, basically putting it in the ditch on a regular basis so you could take care of the aged water problem in that tank. We're basically wasting money. It's all money, all water we have to buy from LUB or TAS to fill that tank. And we're wasting water, and I don't know how often it's being wasted, but it's a pretty regular basis and a significant amount. The POA, the other thing is for the POA to stop all design work on the proposed elevated water tank, and I've said this over a year ago. We didn't need it back then, and we still don't need it now. This tank does not and will not solve any water, low pressure, or low volume problems, issues. And finally, there may still be areas in the village, if the POA documents, and Matt said we're going to start now doing a database in the March of PSAC meeting, that we're going to start doing a database collection similar to what's being done on the inflow and infiltration problems on the wastewater individual tanks, was to start that. And if there's still an area in the village, you could design a small booster pump system that affects the small sections of the village that do not have the required 30 PSI, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the week. This system will be similar to the booster pump station at the Cooper Reservoir on the north end of the village. So, Matt, I don't know if you want to confirm what I've said in terms of the line up to the rec center being verified? Okay, and or anything about wasting the water out of the tank to solve the age problem?
He's not wrong. We probably differ on the amount of water that has to be released to restore chlorine residual. But
Yeah,
that's the way the system works. That's what we have.
That you're basically opening a valve and draining the water out of the tank. And every bit is water that we buy. So I requested the board take some action. And I've heard it, I don't know how many times now, the board will say, well, we haven't got anything for PSAC. You go to PSAC and you go to the PSAC meetings, and they say, well, the board voted on it, and we're just, we've already made our recommendations, and that's the board's done it. At some point, you got to stop pointing at each other, and you got to start being leaders and vote on things. Thank you.
John Olson, Tanasi. From the 2025 budget book and five-year plan, the board reserve spending plan shows an expenditure of $6 million over the next 5 years for a study of the reserve study. The money to pay this expense are coming out of the reserve funds. This is going to amount to an 11% of yearly reserve contributions. The reserve study is not in the asset replacement cost itemized in the first reserve study as presented. So is a 5-year review of the reserve study going to be an ongoing process? And then, if that's true, funding needs to be defined. Is the reserve fund a suitable source for funding a study of the study? Or should a fee be established? Secondly, the items in the reserve spending for the next 5 years show $28 million in sewer and $9 million in water, about what we expected from TAP 1.0. What is concerning is the $13 million in roads. We do a $1 million per year in overlay, but in 2029, we're showing a $6 million in overlay expense, half the 5-year total in 1 year. Why is overlay expense going up 600% in 2029? Is this the start of a trend or an aberration? The POA needs to create a program to reduce the amount of drinking water being used for irrigation. That's not a new statement. Irrigation is a 6-month massive load on the Tellico Village water system. It is 3 times the amount of water used as in non-irrigation periods. Studies on water usage by the FAC and by the CEO would indicate about 20 to 25% of homes irrigate. What is of dire concern is that homes built recently have irrigation systems installed in almost every home. It's almost 100%. Further, the presence of backflow valves is an indication of irrigation systems installed. More than 45% of homes have backflow valves calibrated every year. We face the potential of a doubling of irrigation load right now. I don't think either OUB or TASC can make up that much volume, much less our system handling the doubling of volume. We could go from low water pressure to no water. So please be proactive and determine ways to reduce water usage in Tellico Village. As a minimum, I think the ACC should be tasked to come up with a minimalist landscaping plan. So if people want to go away from a lot of high watering lawns and landscaping, they know what they can go to. I mean, I don't want people dumping loads of limestone all over their yard just to get away from watering. Thank you.
I guess just to clarify one point, I'm not sure where that number came from to update the reserve study, but this update is costing in the neighborhood of $30,000. And the only reason we're doing it sooner than the 5-year normal cycle is because of some of the things that you pointed out. They got imperfect information the first time around from prior management. So they had to make assumptions and they put in large sums of money at certain timeframes. But so that's the whole purpose of doing it sooner than later, is doing the update so we can get much better detail in the study. And it's future updates would be even less money because they can do it remotely.
The only thing I came up with on that was the last item on the board reserve spending report states reserve study end-of-life assets being evaluated, and that's where the $6 million comes from.
Right, that's just stuff that was in the reserve study that they had said need to be replaced within that 5-year period, just a bunch of miscellaneous things. So, you know, that, again, that's why we're updating it, so we don't have a bunch of miscellaneous stuff in the reserve study that's, you know, not clearly defined and not of the magnitude that should be hitting a spending report like that.
But we plan to spend $6 million.
No,
No.
no. No, we don't.
If we don't plan to spend it, why do we put it in a report?
That's a good question.
So let's add some context here. 2022 was the first time that Tellico ever had a reserve study done. As John indicated, and I wasn't on the board at that point in time, nor was I even on the FAC, but it clearly came across that management at that point in time, let's just say they weren't 100% cooperative. And we also have a challenge from the standpoint that many of the assets that the POA has were contributed by Cooper, which means the POA didn't have to pay for those directly. As a result, we don't have perfect fixed asset system information. because if you didn't buy it, you didn't put it in the system, and that's where it started in terms of gathering the information. So there were challenges, and the intent of this is to try and learn from the first situation, improve upon it, and better understand going forward what the requirements are so that we do not end up in a situation where all of a sudden we have a financial crisis, so to speak, for the POA. To your other point, this reserve study, as John indicated, is about $30,000. It's being funded out of normal operations. So I'm not sure where you're pulling all your information from, but this is a very timely and prudent exercise to get the reserve study updated.
Well, yeah, those were end-of-life assets that were unidentified in the
Yes.
cash flow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another $6 million going into the assets.
It's because it's a 5-year plan,
We're gonna
and
take $6 million.
only the budget for this year is specifically voted on and approved. That is just a picture of what could happen, because when each of the directors were asked to specifically put assets that would need to be replaced or repaired on the 5-year plan, 26 through 29, certain things, they have a specific plan to take care of. Others were put on there based on the average amount of spending that we know occurs from reserves each year, and there's assets on the list that will be hitting end-of-year life as the reserve study stands right now, and they were put on there as, we don't know specifically which assets will need to be repaired, but we know there will be some that we're not aware of right here today that will break or need to be fixed or need to be repaired. That was just to help us plan the forecast for the next 5 years. Doesn't mean we're necessarily going to spend that. It's a forecast. It's a 5-year forecast.
And then, John, on your point about roads, as I understand the history, there was a period of time here in Tellico where there was virtually nothing spent on roads. And that has been turned around, and now there is approximately somewhere, I'll say, between $1.5 million and $2 million per year spent in a combination of what's called mill and fill work, which is basically grinding up the pavement and replacing it, and where appropriate, sustaining or enhancing the base underneath where it's found deficient. And then secondly, spending money on what's called PMM, which is basically a product that helps extend the life of our roads. Most of that work is going to be predominantly done on neighborhood-type roads, not collector roads. But we believe, and then Matt can chime in here, that with that type of spending on a yearly basis, we can maintain and extend the life of the Tellico Village roads without having to go out and completely overhaul a road structure out there. When the initial reserve study was done back in 2022, I don't think there was a full understanding around what the program was here in Tellico and how that was going to be continued. And now I think it's fair to say that we have a spreadsheet or database, whatever you want to call it, in terms of when all the roads, when's the last time they've been updated either with mill and fill or PMM treatment. And there is an annual assessment process that the POA staff goes through and does and looks at roads they deem to be most critical in terms of needing repair. And then those roads are basically put on the priority list to get work done on. And later in this meeting today, you'll hear of a motion where basically we're going forward with a mill and fill program on a stretch of highway within the Tellico Village system. So I feel pretty good about, we've finally now got our arms around the road situation, and that seems to be managed very well on a going forward process. But you have to keep in mind, we have 110 miles of roads within Tellico. Yeah, I mean, the roads are going to deteriorate, particularly where there's heavy construction. And Malacca is an area where there has been heavy construction, and that's where some of the work is going to be done this year. So I feel pretty good about that.
I think the road program has been very well conducted. It just looks like at $2 million a year, on an asset value in reserves is less than $60 million, the reserve funds for roads is not related to the asset fund. So again, I don't know how you correct that. If you got an asset worth $60 million and you need to spend at an $80 to $100 million rate, I mean, it kind of falls out of the reserve calculations.
Just have a quick question. Over the years, how much have we paid Jacobs Engineering over the years since this project started? The last number I remember, which was maybe about 2 years ago, we were up to $800,000. Do we have a total as to what we've given them throughout the last few years?
I don't have that number.
But I don't have that number, but I think you got to keep it in mind of some context. When Jacobs was first brought in, as it's been explained to me, we basically were starting with a blank sheet of paper. Teleco did not understand its water system, nor did it understand its wastewater and sewer system. So the first thing was to create a model to better understand the system and make judgments. Then from there have been a number of individual study projects that the board has authorized on a one-by-one basis. And a lot of the important information that came out of the modeling, Jacobs has the basis then to build upon that. So I think that has to be kept in that context. I can't give you the number that has been spent with Jacobs in total. I don't know if Judy has that.
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah,
We can
so-
look it up.
But each of those projects gets a board review and a board approval before the project is authorized to go forward.
I understand that, and I know it's a huge amount of money, whatever you come up with when you total it up. It's just that we've spent all this money for all these years and we still have nothing to show for it.
I disagree with the assessment that we have nothing to show for it. We have models that we better understand our systems now, and we have in fact, in process with Jacobs, the main wastewater pump station, getting ready to go out to bid for a project there. We are progressing, and we'll hear about this today, a wastewater project with Kahiti. We've had a number of other things where we understand, first of all, you have to understand what your problems are and challenges. And we have a number of challenges, both in wastewater and in water, and Jacobs has helped better provide the information on that. Is there still more to capture and understand? Yes. But you gotta remember, we're a combination, 5,600 homes now, plus another 1,400 lots that we're trying to provide water and sewer services for, and two different counties, and the fact that we operate a pressurized system, which is different than many other communities where it's gravity-based. So there is some complexity here. I think all that has to be kept in mind in context of what Jacobs has been asked to do.
Could I enlighten the board is what you've approved to date?
No, he can go. Mine's light.
Gary Zeke again, just if you go back in the board minutes over the years, you've approved over $2 million in Jacobs.
Okay, I'm Gig Wilkowski, and I'm a retired sign guy. I used to own a sign business in Atlanta, and I really do like the new signage. Saw them yesterday put up the new Yacht Club sign, which I like. But as I was driving last night to Tokwa, I still go past that sign that says Cooper Community on whatever road there is, the Tokwa Road and at the light. And I was thinking, why do we even need that sign? Do we need to replace it or just take it down? Too late? I mean, it's like, we got a sign at each entrance to the community, so that just seems to be redundant, and if I was Elon Musk, I would just... And the last thing, I want to thank Lynn. Lynn took me on my exploration tour with my wife Betsy and I, and we are here close to 5 years now. Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, if there's no others, We'll move on to an update on Tanasi by Beth, since Scott is out of the country.
All right. Just a little quick rendering to remind everyone of what we are building. So currently, we are finishing up Phase 1, and then we are going to be going into Phase 2, which is actually the construction of the building. So in Phase 0, which we are also kind of in the middle of, the part of Phase 0 is adding a new cart path around from the temporary pro shop to the starter shack, which has been completed, and then the cart path extension around number 9 Green, which is in progress. They've been out there staking and they're getting ready to build the forms. And that will go all the way back behind the new clubhouse. And what's important about that is in order for us to start Phase 2, we need to reroute golfers around the new construction zone, which all the fencing will be removed. So currently, we're estimating in early May, if weather cooperates, that the Phase 1 parking lot, this big one right here that's going to be closer to the temporary pro shop, should be open. And we'll take all golf traffic over to that side, and they'll be able to start construction on this side. Also in Phase 1, what has been done over this week is they've been tamp rolling. We're going to lay stone today. We got a little rain the other day that put us behind a little bit, and the target completion date, like I said, is early May. And then they're building up the pad below 9 Green, which will be a parking lot in the future. So they're packing that down and getting it compacted.
So Beth, just maybe, can you expand, tamp rolling means for the new parking area?
Yeah, it's to get the base ready for the new parking. So whenever we get done with Phase 1, in the orange part down here, this will not have the final level of asphalt, but it'll have all the binder and the curb. So when we get ready to open the whole building, we'll basically be shut down for a period of time so everything has the same brand-new asphalt. But it will have lines and will be parkable.
So can you also expound on, if you go back, where you say the temporary pro shop has been moved to the starter shack?
No, that's the cart path. The cart path has been from the temporary pro shop, sorry, it shouldn't say moved, has been built. Sorry, that's a typo.
So that's the cart path, not the pro shop itself?
Yeah. The cart path, this cart path right here behind the temporary pro shop has all been poured in concrete, all the way to the starter shack.
Right.
Sorry, that's what that was supposed to say.
Thank you.
Some updating on permit and access. The fire marshal has approved. We've got that. Building permit was actually received today, so that's good news. That means that they'll be, as we get that parking lot open, they'll be starting to dig footers for the new building. Some TDOT permits are in progress. We have a permit out for the temporary entrance, the brand-new entrance, and then road boring to install a new water line to the second fire hydrant. We expect those in the coming week. And then just to give everybody an idea, because the original phasing plan is an old site plan. This is the new cart path. This is extending, or currently what is there, and then the cart path will go around 9 and then tie back in. So for golfers, as we open up this lower parking lot, they will start to come up through here and go all the way around back to, this is where the cart barn is now, the temporary one in the pro shop. That's kind of how the flow of traffic will be progressing in early May, which will be much better for the golfer.
When you say flow of traffic, you're talking about the
Cart
golf
traffic.
carts?
Mhm.
Okay, but in terms of parking in the new designated parking area,
Yep, they're gonna come in the old entrance right here, and they'll go straight into this parking lot, and they'll come in and out here, and there'll be no access to this anymore. I think that's my last slide. Oh, nope, got another one. And this is more as a reminder to just kind of follow on to the town hall where Carla come and spoke about Timeless Teleco and their fundraising efforts to expand the golf experience at Tanasi. One of the things that they're raising money for currently is golf simulator bays. And I know Casey just mentioned at his golf advisory committee that they had just a couple of demo days using simulators and raised $40,000, I believe. Is the right number? Somebody correct me? That's right? Okay. And so that just goes to show you the power and potential of these simulators. This is an artist rendering of the area we have designated if we raise the funds to put in the simulators. And then what Thomas Telco is trying to achieve is private funding that totals $185,000, and that's to purchase 2 golf simulators, the furniture that would be in that whole area, special lighting and finishes. So far, they have $50,000 already raised. They received $10,000 grant from Loudoun County. The goal is to raise $150,000. They had originally by May 15th, but she's moved that to May 31st. And then some of the ways you can just give an open donation. There's bar stool naming rights, bench naming rights, and something new is brick pavers. There's going to be a path from the pro shop down to where you'll pick up your golf cart, and they have large and small pavers, and you can buy naming rights and put your name on a paver for $250 or $500. So anyone that is interested in donating, this is to their main website donation form. We ask you to do so. And they also accept the old-fashioned way, she said, and they'll take checks. And then rolling into the next item on the agenda, if you don't mind, John, or do you want me to hold for Tanasi questions?
You can just roll into
Okay.
the next topic, which is communication policy.
So as John mentioned in his opening remarks, one of the things that has been asked of me is to help review the policy and procedures for the POA, and it is an exhaustive list. So my goal is to bring the 5 per month, it may be more, it could be more, but at least 5 per month so we can kind of stay on a good, healthy roll throughout the year. And then one of the other things we're doing is standardizing the format across the documents. They're all kind of a little bit different. Some don't have policy numbers and others do, so we just want to make them all look the same. And then also we'll be updating an index that will reflect all the revisions and dates and make sure that we have an accurate account of the policies. From a communication standpoint, something that CAC and Joel and I have been working on is enhancing the communications. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about renaming HelpSpot. We talked about the answer desk. But ultimately, we decided that there was over 1,900 HelpSpots submitted last year. And that means that quite a few people know about HelpSpot. So we didn't see the need to rename it. But we did see a need to rebrand it and to work on a communication process of getting the word out. So we have a new logo that kind of stands out, and it's your go-to spot for Tellico Village questions, help, and more. I think a lot of people didn't know for sure what it was used for. And so we're asking everyone to start utilizing the Help Spot as your central communications tool for the village. You can ask questions, submit requests for work to be done, get answers to questions. You can even just leave basic feedback there. And then at the end, once we close out the ticket, you'll be able to rate the staff's response. Were you satisfied or not satisfied? One of the things that's going to do is we have also added a new board communication contact form on the website rather than just individual board email addresses to ensure that all board members receive communication. I know amongst the board, a few of them will get something and the others don't, so they're having to forward it, and did you get this? No, and so it just kind of becomes kind of confusing and also very hard to track. So on the next slide, I just wanted to show everyone that the HelpSpot icon is on the bottom of every single web page of the POA website. You do not have to be logged in to see what you're seeing here today. And then how is HelpSpot going to work in the future? One of the things that we found is that a lot of people would go straight to the board with issues that they hadn't talked to staff about. And so what we wanted to do is to encourage people to use the HelpSpot and just ensure you that there is a flow to the communication. So whenever we start, you will turn in a HelpSpot, and you're going to receive a response within 1 business day of who your ticket is going to be assigned to. It's going to be assigned to the appropriate department and person. Most of the time we get that right. Sometimes you might see a switch into the person that's over your ticket, but not very often. And then they're going to hopefully, the individual that gets assigned your ticket will respond to you within another business day. So if you send in a lot of HelpSpots over the weekend, you might not get a response until Monday. And then once they've satisfied the HelpSpot, they'll close it out and you'll get that survey. If you were satisfied with your HelpSpot, it will be closed. If you're unsatisfied with your HelpSpot, it will be elevated up to the executive team. We will review those that have an unsatisfactory rating and try to reach out to you to see if we can resolve the issue or at least look further into it and talk to staff to see kind of what was going on. And then we will close the ticket out again And if you say it's satisfactory, it ends. If you still say it's unsatisfactory, it will be escalated to the board. And we think that this process will just help with a better flow of communication moving forward. Joel, do you have anything to add on that?
No, Beth, that's very good. The only thing is it's not an automatic to the board. It's
No,
a-
I will send it, yes. And I think that's, oh, nope, here. So on the POA website, on the Board of Directors page, right under their photo is a contact form. And so if you fill this out, your name, number, your email, and then we're asking you to put the HelpSpot ticket that you want the board to look into or reference, and then your feedback. And then that will automatically be sent to me, and then I will make sure it's forwarded to every single board member. And then I think that's my last slide. Yep. Any questions on that by the board or anybody? Nope. All right, thank you.
Well, I think technically the next agenda item is the general manager report.
I jotted down a couple of things. A couple of them got mentioned already, but I want to emphasize again, I was incredibly surprised at the golf vendor demo on April the 4th. There were 400 people in attendance with several different vendors. I saw all the tents, couldn't count them all. But we sold, on the gross scale, $40,000 worth of clubs. And I think that's a great testament to the golf staff hustling, pushing product, continuing to have Tellico villagers believe it couldn't possibly be the Indian, it must be the arrow. And I'm saying that as a board meeting because I want everyone to believe it. That's, the answer is better clubs, and our helpful professionals at the golf shops would be happy to help you in that endeavor. We were just talking about HelpSpot tickets. Kevin Alfont indicated to me that in the last 30 days, we've received 236 HelpSpot tickets. So I think what you said, Beth, was something in the neighborhood of 1,200 to 1,400 in a year. 1,900. So yeah, typical month. We received an 86% satisfaction rate. So I think it's illustrative of the fact that this does work. I know from a public works perspective, when a HelpSpot ticket comes in, it's not ignored. We can't always give the answer that people want, but you're going to get an answer. And I think that's true all throughout the organization. And it's a tool that I think has great validity. And I know from a management standpoint, we're trying to make sure HelpSpot tickets don't fall, HelpSpot tickets don't fade, and that people get an answer. That concludes it for today.
Okay. Now, there was an opening on the Highway Advisory Committee. And who is the liaison? Mike, if you want to do a quick summation.
Sure. One of our team members had to step down, and the advisory committee chair and two of the other members got together. They published the gap, the opening to the village through, Beth put that out, and they had 3 applicants come back, and they had 4 come back. One stepped out when they realized the time commitment that goes with it, and the other 3 they interviewed, and the one that they recommended in-house was a gentleman named Don Manning, and he had real background in the highway space, and they recommended him, and they're asking our board to approve him on the committee.
Okay. Guess we'll look for a motion to approve Don for the.
As such, I make a motion that the board approves Don Manning to the Highway Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay, very good. Welcome aboard, Don. Get ready. There's a lot to do. Again, I would like to thank all the volunteers on our committees. They do spend a lot of time volunteering on these various committees. We've got a lot of them now, but I do appreciate all the effort they all give. So with that, we'll turn it over to Marty to talk about Elite Tunes.
So I'd like to introduce Jim Sandridge. He's one of the main guys driving this show, so he's going to provide us an update.
Is this on? First of all, thank you for the time. What this is about is, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. The Yacht Club Lakeside Project Exploration, it's an update on the process where we are. And just to kind of refresh your memory, this hasn't been a topic that's front of mind lately. The background on this project is we're exploring creating a multi-use amphitheater out back the Yacht Club lawn, so that you could host social, musical, theatrical, local fundraising with a real goal of, getting the community to more utilize the facility and really just enjoy the beauty of Tellico Lake. I put this picture in there so you could see how it is now, and you can kind of visualize what the potential could be for what could happen there. As part of this, we've identified East Tennessee Community Design Center, which is out of Knoxville, as a partner in this. And if you're not familiar with them, they actually look at nonprofits and community organizations to provide pro bono design work for these types of projects. If the name sounds familiar, they actually did some work for the public library at Tellico Village years ago. So they've been around a long time. And the current status of this is February of last year, the board approved that we could submit, their project could be submitted to the Design Center for consideration. At the time, they would like projects to be submitted by a 501c3. And we didn't have, as Elite Tunes, our C3 designation, so we partnered with Timeless Tellico to turn that in. The actual design committee talked to Timeless Tellico, talked to us, and as we were having a dialogue with them, we mentioned that we were in the process of getting our C3 designation, and the recommendation from the general manager, Dwayne Greaves, said, you know what, why don't you guys submit the project when you get your C3 designation? So that's what we did in November. When we got our C3, we submitted it in December. We presented before their project design committee that has to accept the project in January, and we're advised we're accepted. So the great news is we had approval to be able to submit the project, and we have been selected. So the ask today is really for approval to be able to continue with the project. And what that means is the Design Center does a scope of work document within a memorandum of understanding format, which basically outlines deliverables, timelines, things like that, and they need the stakeholders to be able to sign off on that. So the ask is, number one, to be able to continue the dialogue. Number two would be what the process would be if there's a person on the board to work directly with or whatever, to review this MOU and go forward with that. So I'm asking for approval, number one, and then for direction, number two.
Again, Marty, I think you've been taking the lead on this. The approval is only for them to get the pro bono work done, correct? And then we decide next steps after that.
Right.
Yeah, let me it is all about, getting the pro bono work done, and who knows where it goes from there. It may help to be able to go through the next slide just to kind of give you an idea of the project timeline, because, if you think about it, these people, the professionals that volunteer their time, obviously have a professional practice. And so what the Design Center does is they post the job out on their project dashboard, professionals sign up. We think it'll be a landscape architect as well as an architect. And that's expected to take a couple of months to get that person identified. And then the actual design work takes 9 to 12 months. There's, within the scope of services, they talk about the different meetings they'll have, the deliverables and timelines and everything. So at the end, we end up having a schematic and a drawing to be able to basically get public opinion on, to fundraise from. So it's not construction drawings or anything like that. That's a whole nother step. But at the end of the day, they value this work as about $10,000 from the pro bono side. Then you look at what happens after that. Once we get that project done, they will present it to us. And then we look at that and look at the feasibility and, of going forward, what types of approvals are needed. And of course, this is going to be privately funded, so we'll have fundraising efforts that go with that. And you look at it and, this starts to become a couple-year project out. But we feel like it's worth exploring and seeing where it lands. And, if it comes to fruition, I think everyone would be thrilled.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we really need to vote on anything. I mean, we've already given you guys the nod to say, yeah, go ahead and work with East Tennessee Design Center.
Mm-hmm.
And, as this thing starts evolving and you get some deliverables from them or some things to discuss, then we can come back and bring it to the board again.
The point of discussion is the scope of work. They need stakeholders to sign off on it, so they'll need a representative from the POA to sign off on it since it's POA land. And then as the project leads, we'll sign off on it.
So my recommendation there would be to work through Matt.
Okay.
And then Matt will keep the board informed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Sound good?
Sounds great. So Matt, I'll follow up with you and we'll connect afterwards. Okay,
Now,
any other questions?
Well,
from-
I had a quick question. I think I read way back when you first started doing these concerts that part of your fundraising is putting on these concerts, correct? Or will it be?
Not necessarily. I mean, when you think about what we do, I'll just show you this just as an example. The money that comes from our concerts goes to local charities. So that's the reason we exist. We're an all-volunteer organization. So, last year, we did 4 last year, and we kicked it off with one in the fall of '23. But we've had 5 different charities that we've given money to, and we have 5 more lined up this year. So from a fundraising point of view, we don't really see, at this point, our concerts to drive money for this because we are charity-focused and that's our mission. So we would take a separate tack to be able to raise money.
Okay.
And aren't you offering like season tickets for people to buy?
We do. You can buy season tickets to them. The thing that we have really done and worked really hard on is, number one, identifying the different charities within the community that we can help. And number 2 is bringing in talent that you can see in our backyard and not have to go to Nashville. And we have people coming in from California, and we've somehow developed a nice relationship with the people that have been contestants on the TV show The Voice. And I think everyone that we've had out here, people have realized that it's extremely entertaining. They have great talent. But at the end of the day, you're actually socializing with your friends, all for a good cause, looking at the beauty of the Smoky Mountains across the lake. And you just can't beat that. That's priceless.
And it also brings business to the yacht club.
Well, that goes back to the first slide, too. It does bring business. We get a lot of people from outside the village, and that's, quite frankly, that's one of the things that the Design Center wants. They don't want a private entity that they're supporting. And, the beauty of it is with the food services falling under us now, and a venue like this is, our vision is that it would bring in a lot of outside public business to not only drive revenue through, our organization, but showcase the beauty and bring more residents in as well and enhance the property value.
Yep, I agree.
And if people are interested in buying tickets, where do they go?
Oh, man. We're all over the place. We're on Teleco Life. You'll see us scrolling on the screens within the village here. Eventbrite is the online ticket service we use so that people can buy tickets outside the village. And this year, the actual charities themselves are selling tickets directly as well. So several ways to do it. Our first concert's May 4th coming up, so just a couple of weeks away. And the entertainer is Jordan Rayner, someone that was a finalist on The Voice on Reba McEntire's team, and she has created quite a reputation and a following out of Nashville, so you will not be disappointed.
Excellent.
Jim, Jim, approximately how many people can attend one of these concerts?
So the attendance is limited to what Skylar feels like they can properly handle. Okay? So, and that's about 600. And to be able to put this on, what we do is we have 2 40-passenger school buses that shuttle people from Community Church here. And along that line, on the design work, we also have expanding our parking at the yacht club. What would that look like from a professional design and taking a look at it as well? So we have that. We've got, the band is down there where the weddings are held. And if you look at, I think professionally, if you were to have a professional look and say, we have this many square feet, you could handle more people out there. And that's part of what we looked at in this design. When we put together, just to backtrack a little bit, before the board actually approved back in February of '24, in January, we met with the POA, Timeless Teleco, and there was about 10 of us. Beth was there, Mitzi was there, some of the food committee people were there as well. And what we did is we said, okay, what would be the elements that we would want to include in a design like this? And we had 2 goals at the very first. Number 1 is maintaining the integrity of the view from the yacht club to the lake, and number 2, from the lake to the yacht club. And so those are first and foremost of the things that we have presented to the design center. And then all the other elements were like, let's give those to the professionals, let them work them into their plans, see what they come up with, and look at the potential. Maybe we do it in phases, maybe we don't raise enough money at first, maybe we don't do it at all, but at the end of the day, we have a picture of actually what the potential could be of how we could do something like this.
Good.
Great. Any more questions?
No?
Awesome.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Look forward to the next one. And now, the star of the show.
Every single time. And before we dive into the numbers, I want to let everybody know that in addition to all the other fun and exciting activities on the agenda right now, we also have the audit going on. And I can't believe nobody brought that one up.
So I missed that one.
Yeah, it's underway and going very well, and we hope to be able to present to the board during the May meeting, the final results for the 2024 audit. So, more good things to look forward to. Again, I went the wrong way. There we go. Okay, so we always start off looking at our balance sheet. Our cash balance is $34.8 million at the end of May. That's up by $4 million since the end of December. We are earning a weighted average rate of return on our reserve balance and 3.5% on much of our operating cash. Our balance sheet remains strong. The total assets are $73.7 million, up $5.2 million since December. Our total liabilities are $21 million. That's up $3.6 million, primarily due to the increases in the unearned revenue over on the bottom right that we'll look at in a minute. Our debt-to-equity ratio currently stands at 17%. Looking at our accounts receivable and allowance for doubtful accounts, the health of our AR remains strong. The ratio of the allowance balance to the AR balance is 41% this month, which is the same as can be seen for December. Information on suspended accounts, which are those that are over 90 days in arrears. The balance on suspended accounts is up for the month, but down year over year. The current balance of $925,000 represents 42% of our current accounts receivable balance. And again, the balance in the allowance account are those that are over 1 year old, and the suspended account balances are those that are over 90 days old. Looking at our unearned revenue, the current balance is $9.3 million. We still see a lot of those upfront payments from residents included in these balances for prepaid assessments, golf and rec fees. The utility service assessments, that's for homes that are in progress to be built, and we're installing the utility tanks in the ground. That balance of $2.7 million represents 29% of the total that's in the account balance right now, the 9.3. This balance also includes $2.2 million of the water sewer infrastructure asset fees that have been collected and are as yet unspent on one of the 5 projects. Here's some more details on that water sewer account fund. The balance forward from 2024 up there, I'm talking to the numbers with the little red asterisk, are $1,113,000. $1,372,000 has been contributed to the account through March in 2025. We have spent $254,000 on 2 projects this year, the elevated water tower and the main pump station. And as a result of these transactions, we will see that same number, $254,000 of earned revenue on our income statement, while the remainder of the funds collected are still included in the unearned revenue balance that we just saw, that $2.2 million. Additionally, the account has earned $15,467 of interest income in 2025, so the balance in the account is now $2.2 million, $2,246,000. Looking at our income statement, we finished March with a gross profit of $7,375,000. The numbers I'm going to mention, there's not much color deviation up there, but they're dark green up there, which was $61,000 better than the forecast, which is basically on target, 1% variance from the budget. We beat the prior year gross profit by $428,000, and the 2 greatest contributors to that variance are assessments with the 3% increase and the utility department, water, sewer, and utility tank installs. Our expenses through March totaled $5,677,000, which were $264,000 better than the budget. The primary contributor to this result through the end of March is maintenance expenses, which were $207,000 better than budget, and most of this was from various public works departments, maintenance of sewer lines, common properties, some sewer tank installation expenses. Golf maintenance, rec, and food service also have some unspent maintenance expenses. Our other income and expense account is contributing, our category, $506,000 favorably to the budget through March. $254,000 of this amount comes from that revenue from the recognized water sewer fees that were spent on the 5 projects. And $163,000 comes from our better than budget interest income. That should average out over time as we continue to spend reserves on budgeted projects, largely on the Tanasi project. Our net income through the end of March is $1,704,000. Adding back the depreciation expense, we get to our net surplus, which is $2,315,000, which is $831,000 better than budget expectations. Here is a look at our capital spending. We can see the operational net surplus again that we just mentioned of $2,315,000 and all the various departments and how they contribute to that total. Through March, we have $2,153,000 of reserve spending, which leaves us with a net surplus after capital and maintenance spending from reserves of $162,000.
Judy,
Yes, sir.
the strategic line, for everybody's benefit, that is primarily Tanasi?
It's primarily Tanasi, but it also includes our accounting project.
Okay.
This is the reserve spending, just the budget itself and how much has been spent. Our total budget for the year, including carryovers from 2024, is $21.7 million. Almost $14 million has been authorized on those projects year-to-date, and the divisional spending results, again, are $2,153,000 year-to-date, which agrees with the number that we just saw on the previous slide. And as you can see, that the biggest part of that authorized number under strategic, that $10,393,000, most of that is Tanasi. And now we have our capital funding requests. We have 6 funding requests this month for Public Works, 1 for Parks and Rec, and 1 for golf maintenance. The golf one is more of a courtesy mention because it's less than $50,000.
Good afternoon. So the first capital request is the replacement of 2 trucks in the Water and Sewer Division. This is a budgeted expense. We'll talk a little bit about, I checked the box that it's under budget. We'll talk about that, and we did get 3 quotes. We have $113,750 for the replacement of 2 vehicles. Envisioned was a half-ton truck and a 3/4-ton truck. After staff did their investigation, they started to really hone in on the 3/4-ton trucks because they have the availability of utility beds. Both of these trucks exist within the Field Services Division of Water and Sewer. They're the ones making trips out to fix your household tanks when the alarm goes off. And there's some real benefit in being able to, with the utility beds, keep a lot of your tools and materials stored instead of occasionally having to come back to the office, to the shop, pull tools out of the bed of a half-ton, put new tools in, new equipment, empty it at the end of the day. The utility beds will likely stop a lot of that. So ultimately, we found 1 truck available at the Ford dealership in Sweetwater. I just blanked on the name. Anybody want to help me? Jackie Jones, well done. In the amount of $57,315. 1 was on the lot. We feel pretty comfortable we can order another one. Of course, we go through this process. Having sought quotes 4 or 5 weeks ago, I hope that truck's still on the lot. If not, we feel like we can get a couple ordered. So the request is in the amount of $125,125, which is in excess of the budget, only simply because I took 2 trucks and added 10%, just given the fact that we've got to go out and find these trucks now. But if the trucks are on the lot, they can hold that price. We can do it for less than what is budgeted. And I've provided a recommended board motion if you so wish.
So, John, I would move that the board approve the authorization of the purchase of 2 3/4-ton utility trucks not to exceed $125,125.
I'll second.
Okay, it's a motion made and seconded. Any discussion at the board? All those in favor of approving? 5-0.
2 things I wanted to mention, I forgot. People wonder sometimes what kind of mileage we put on these vehicles. Both of them were well in excess. One of them was in the neighborhood of 230,000. I think that was the half-ton truck that is currently not operable. We run into circumstances with these aging trucks where the repair is going to cost more than the value of the truck. Bad day. It's not a circumstance you want to be in. So we left it. It needed to be replaced, and I think the 3/4-ton truck, both of these are gas, they are not diesel, was up in the neighborhood of 265 or 270,000 miles. So we're running them hard and long.
Matt, how old are these trucks that we're replacing?
Dadgummit. I had it in my memo, I don't remember. I know.
I just wanted, I know how they're old, they're like 10 or 12 years.
So the one that's not operable, I think I recall a 2006 date on that.
I was thinking 2005, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've served us very, very, very well. And yes, they will be disposed of. And what the disposal value, particularly on a half-ton truck that's not operable, we'll get best we can. The 2025 street maintenance overlay program is in fact budgeted. We can talk about how it may well be under budget, may not. It's going to be some operational implementation efforts. We did get 2 quotes and begged another company to give us a third, and they ultimately chose not to. The adopted budget includes $1,034,118 for milling and 1.5-inch overlay of specified roads in Mialacqua and Tanasi Shores. Mike's probably going to ask me which roads. I don't have them committed to memory. I could find them on a multiple choice, but I don't have them committed. The low bid provided is APAC Atlantic. That's Harrison Construction. I think Harrison Construction has done all of the mill and overlay in Tellico Village, I think, for a period of about 5 years. Their asphalt plant is in Sweetwater, so generally the adjacency to your asphalt plant, you're probably going to do the best on price most of the time. They submitted a bid of $18.10 a square yard, which is about $1 more per square yard than what we paid last year, which I think is understandable given the current rate increases that we're seeing in aggregate and fuel. PSAC unanimously recommended award a bid and contract to APEC Construction in the amount of $1,092,000. And part of the reason it comes up over budget is we have to make some estimates going into the bid process with how much asphalt has to be removed. One thing you know about laying asphalt, you cannot lay the asphalt until you find yourself a hard surface. Sometimes you have to mill a little bit more to find something that is hard. Sometimes you may get down into dirt and you have to put aggregate down, tack down, and then build it back up with asphalt. So we made some estimates about the extent to which different areas might need more milling and more asphalt. And so what we intend to do is do Tanasi Shores first, see how much of this additional asphalt we end up having to apply. Then we go on to Mialacqua, see how much we have to apply. And there's a segment of road from Mialacqua right as you turn off 444 and you head south. There's a segment of road there to the first intersection, a little bit past Sloan's, in the neighborhood of the self-storage units, that is in remarkably better shape than the rest of Mialacqua. I would like to get it done because there is the advantage at the intersections that the rutting and the cracking can emerge. We're just going to have to see how we do with this additional I should call it excavation, additional milling, additional asphalt. If we can get the whole thing done, we will. I do want to make the point, we did this exact same thing last year, and our estimates of what we thought we were going to need for additional mill and fill did not materialize. So operationally, staging the project, we have some other elements of the road maintenance program that we'll be bidding this month for hopefully award and consideration in May. I feel like we're going to be able to bring this whole road maintenance project in on budget. And so I'm asking you to accept essentially the full meal deal, but we do have some ways that I feel like we can bring it into the $1,034,000 range.
And what you speak of coming in May is primarily PMM?
Primarily PMM, and also one of my public works employees said, you know what's the toughest thing about doing PMM? It's like, what? Doing PMM. The difficulty is you do it on the neighborhood street, you impact 8 people. You do it on a collector street, say Chota or Tanasi, you impact the entire neighborhood. And the street is down for 2 consecutive days. PSAC and I both kind of agree, PMM on the collector roads is tough. It is very difficult, especially if you start dealing with rain and you end up having to reschedule, re-notify everybody. So we're doing some segmented mill and fill, and that's the other component that we still have to bid.
And the timing on this would be second quarter to get this done? Is that?
As soon as we're ready to sign a contract, we get on the schedule, and I would say May to June timeframe is what I would expect going into it.
John, I'd make a motion that the board approve the award to Harrison Construction for a 2025 mill and overlay program not to exceed $1,092,948.
Second, anybody?
I second that.
Any other comment from the board? No? All those in favor? 5-0.
The Kahidi Pump Station Design Task Order. It is budgeted, it's under budget. We engaged Jacobs for this discussion. At the February board meeting, members of staff, board, and PSAC, after the February board meeting, members of staff, board, and PSAC met with Jacobs to clarify the scope of the task order for the design of the Kahidi Pump Station. And what I would summarize for you is, you ask a consultant to do something and you don't provide clear direction about, this is exactly what I want you to do. And they're left with an understanding of what they think you want, and we ended up with something that would be along the lines of probably a custom house as opposed to a not custom house. So we sat and we clarified with them, what do we intend to do? And after reviewing a few specific elements of the task order that somewhat unusual, this is what we've been received, PSAC unanimously agreed to all of these services, and I can discuss those if the board wishes. But as a general rule of thumb, engineering services of this type typically range from 8 to 12% of the total estimated project cost. And that's a rule of thumb. If you do a complex, significant project like reverse osmosis water treatment, you can pay 20% easy. But as we talked about the different services, some of them consist a little bit related to how many meetings, how many sort of hard stops does Jacobs have? Do we want to have a meeting and do a design review at the 30, the 60, and the 90% range? The general feeling amongst PSAC is yes. And the second piece would be, we are asking them for a hard, what we call 10% sort of basis of design review, at which we're going to review the viability of using the existing wet well versus what we would call a prepackaged pump station. There are advantages and disadvantages to both operationally and cost-wise, but it was important to the group that examined it to take a hard look at both of those things. Also, in that 10% sort of examination, we got to spend a lot of time with tasks, because a lot of what is envisioned here presumes tasks can take everything we intend to send. We feel comfortable if they can, we can push all the waste. But we've got to absolutely tighten up that loop to say, once and for all tasks, here's how much we intend to send and at what interval, and can you accept it? Again, the feeling on behalf of PSAC was, yes, it's worthwhile to take that time to consider reusing the existing wet well versus a prepackaged system and make sure everything is tight with tasks. Once you sort of separate those out, which are really kind of an owner preference, we're coming in at an estimated design of about 12.8% of the total estimated project cost. The little excess 0.8% overage there really kind of comes to, it's a small project. You lose a little bit of your economies of scale in some of those places, so it's within reason in my mind. I can provide the recommended motion for you, but that is.
And included in this scope, can you speak to odor control?
Yep, odor control is going to be a feature of just every pump station that we encounter. Presently at our pump stations, we use charcoal filtering, which really is a finishing product. It is not generally intended to be the bulk of odor control. And so every time we design these projects, we're using what should be the bulk of the odor control. And you're going to say, what chemicals are we using? And I'm going to say, I don't know. But it is a carbon polishing, carbon filtering type exercise. And I do believe no matter what path we take, the odor control elements in Kahidi will be far better than as they sit today.
One of the other things, Matt, what is the estimated total cost of the project now that we've given them different guidance?
1.4.
As opposed to how much was in the tap?
Something in the
let me give
neighborhood
you
of 5
5.
million. Yeah, something in the
So
neighborhood of 5.
we've scaled that back 3.4 million.
Yep.
With the help of PSAC and Jacobs and you, and I appreciate that. Thank
Yep.
you.
Well, and I think the other key thing, as I understand it, that hopefully we get confirmation from task, and I know folks down at Kahidi are very attuned to this, is there are other developments going on in that
Yep.
area, which are going to be sending wastewater to task.
Yep.
So a key aspect of this design is getting confirmation from task that they can handle the volumes at the higher capacity variable speed pumps that this
Yes.
project anticipates.
Yep.
And and that confirmation is key, because if we can't get that confirmation from task, then we're gonna have to step back, and hence why the 10% design checkpoint is so important. If
Correct.
we can't get that confirmation from task, then we gotta step back and reevaluate.
Yep.
So I would go ahead and make a motion that we approve Jacobs Engineering to conduct the preliminary engineering report, design report, and design for the Kahidi Pump Station in an amount not to exceed $240,000.
I'll second that.
I've got a question. What's the estimated time frame between this approval and construction beginning?
A year.
So I think, Matt, what we had talked about was a June, July timeframe for that 10% check-in,
Correct.
and then subsequent check-ins at the 30, 60, and 90% throughout
Correct.
the balance of this year and early next year.
Correct. That's exactly right. But just so that you understand, the 30, 60, 90 generally would, in a typical process, Jacob stops what they're doing, prepares a presentation, does the background research, is ready to present to either or both PSAC and the board to kind of say, here's where we're at, here's where we think everything is. So when you do those hard stops at 30, 60, 90, practically speaking, you could be adding 30 to 60 days at every hard stop. So we've built that in. Otherwise, this is not a one-year design project.
Yeah, I would recommend we consider not having those hard stops and the presentations and the meetings that drive up the cost. If we get to the go, no-go at 10% and we got task confirmation, could we limit it to one review in between 10 and 100?
There's an opportunity there, John, but this is also going to be the template for all of the neighborhood pump stations that we're going to upgrade as well. So we're kind of wanting to look at it a little closer than normal. And we talked about this in PSAC, is there's an opportunity of scale savings, that we can take this and plug it in at the other 5 neighborhood pump stations that we have here in the main village. An economy
Especially,
of scale.
yeah, I could see that, especially if you go pre-packaged.
Yeah, and so we're looking at that, and this is the one we really want to scrutinize, and we won't have that on the next 5 in the village.
So it's an investment in our.
Yeah, it's pay me now or pay me later.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I do. I'm just going to speak from a philosophical standpoint. To me, business relationships are extremely important based on shared values and common goals. And Gary brought up a long list of things that I cannot confirm or deny what he was saying. I'm sure they're very accurate. But I'm just going to talk on my own personal experience dealing with Jacobs. So on December 6th, we invited them to come and present TAP 2.0 to them. TAP 2.0 said we don't need the two wastewater tanks at the main pump station in Kahidi, and we didn't need an elevated water tank because their modeling studies didn't include the LUB tank that was put in 2022, nor the Von Oler booster station. And I don't think that we've done our due diligence with I&I. Then again, on January 21st, we invited Jacobs again to a meeting that we had, a joint meeting with LUB, their engineering company, LJA, TRDA, and their engineering company, C2RL. During that meeting, LUB was very clear saying that the reason LJA is there is they're going through a complete modeling study of their wastewater processing. And they'll have a modeling study done in May, approximately, and that they'll have a major plan, master plan ready by the end of the summer. 4 days later, after those two meetings on December 6th and January 21st with Jacobs, they send a full-blown letter, and I'll read the second to last line with you. A definitive recommendation is not made in this document. That includes a 750,000-gallon wastewater tank down by the yacht club, a wastewater tank at Kahidi, and an elevated water tank. No recommendations after hearing all that information. On April 7th, they come in and they present the elevated water tank. During that elevated water tank discussion, they admitted none of the improvements that were made in 22 with the new million-gallon tank from LUB, the Von Orr booster station, was not included. Water from TAS was not included. And they also showed a diagram showing that we dropped below 1,070 HDL, hydraulic grade level, which is bad because when you do the math, it says that those houses that are above 1,000 feet elevation, which we have some, would not be getting 30 PSI. Asked them, was that done since 2022? No, that was 2019. I have no faith in dealing with them. I do not recommend, I recommend we let them have the business with the main pump station. We conclude with them whatever we decide on the elevated water tank, and we give another engineering company a bite at the apple, go. Philosophically, I like C2RL. We just had a networking meeting with them. First thing out of their mouth, we talked about Kahidi. They said, I wouldn't do a thing until you fix your I&I. Don't spend money that you may not need to spend. I like that. Shared common goals, shared values. I don't get that from Jacobs at all. If I go into my car fixed and they tell me it's $1,500 to do my brakes, I go down the street and they say, no, all you need is front pads and rotor, which is this actually did happen. I got it fixed for $250. Rear brakes had over 50% life on it. Car's 13 years old. I don't want to spend money on new brake pads that the original and still had over 50% life, and the car won't go that long. Who do I do business with? The $1,500 or the $250? Great quality. That's why I do not agree with expanding more business with Jacobs. I'll give you one other example. When we determined this warehouse that Honda has here in Loudon, our Northwest study showed that it should have been put in Ohio. Our president, Kawamoto-san, looked us in the eye and said, no more eggs in Ohio basket, Tennessee. I'm glad he did that. Now all the manufacturing's moving south. He was way ahead of his time. Diversification is very important here. I think we got too many eggs in the Jacobs basket. I think it's time to give somebody else a chance. And by the way, LUB, I think Mike was mentioning earlier, Barge is another engineering company to do with. So you do with Barge and LJA. They have diversified companies, more than just one. I think it's important. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Joel, I understand your points, but I think, from my judgment, Jacobs has done what the POA has asked them to do. Some of the things that you cite are based upon limitations coming in terms of direction from the POA. In addition, in a case here of Kahidi, we have to keep in mind a very important aspect. If the POA has more than 5 overflows in a rolling 12-year period, or 1-year period, I'm sorry, not 12-year, 1-year period, we're subject to being shut down to no new connections. Jacobs provides the most expedient path to upgrading this pump station with odor control, and the fact that Jacobs is not going to be doing the actual construction of the pump station. That's going to go out to bid. So I think this is the optimal solution at this point in time. we very well could, for the other neighborhood pump stations, go to another engineering firm. That could be a possibility. But we're going to learn, as Mike indicated, we're going to learn from this one. This one, I think, is important in terms of keeping the building activity moving forward with Kahidi and addressing the odor control, which is only getting worse based upon the comments that I've heard from multiple Kahidi folks. And, you know, if we were talking several $1 million, I might have a different answer. But this, given what we've got here and the specific direction and the key check-in points, I think this is well controlled to make sure that the POA is getting what they want in a very defined manner with good quality oversight from POA management, PSAC combined to manage this project, because we're not committing to actually doing the project until we see the design work, and also understanding what tasks can or can't do for the POA going forward in terms of the wastewater coming out of Kahidi, I think is very important. So that's why I am supportive of this. And this did receive the unanimous approval of the PSAC committee.
Mike, thank you for your additional input. It doesn't fall on deaf ears, but let me bring up a couple other things. So Richard Yarborough, the president of C2RL, worked for the company that installed our sewer systems here. He has extremely transferable skills about our system. Second, when we look at Kahidi, who is the engineering company? That's TAS, is our utility supplier, and who is their preferred engineering firm? C2RL. So they already have an ongoing relationship, very close, and comes highly recommended by the chairman over at TAS. Mark Clinton says he thinks extremely highly of them, and they already work very effectively together. So when Mike tells me that this is a model that's going to be used forward for future wastewater stations, and I go back to shared values and common goals, who do I want to have work on my car and do the next major repair? The $1,500 shop or the $250, who already has inherent transferable skills because the president, Richard Yarborough, put in a lot of the sewer systems here. Jacobs, when I asked about when have you done testing recently, they couldn't say where and when. When Mike tells him he's getting hydraulic grade readings of 1,113, he says, I don't know how that's happening. Well, they're not out there reading. I could go on and on. But I'm only going to talk about my own personal experience and not others. Almost every interaction I've had with Jacobs, I'm underwhelmed. And this is a long-term partnership, and I want to deal with a company that I feel very comfortable shares my values and goals. Thank you.
I got a question, Matt. How long would it take to qualify another engineering firm?
If you were to go through a full request for qualifications, in my mind, it's a couple of weeks of preparing that document. It's probably, I would say, 3 weeks to a month to receive them. Once you receive them, you review them, and then once you review them, you sit down and schedule some interviews. It's important in my mind when you're doing requests for qualifications, I want to see your A-team. I want to know who I'm dealing with. I don't want to see the sales team come in. I want to meet the engineers. I want to understand who they are. And then negotiating a contract, I just want to make abundantly clear that process is not bidding. You're comparing amongst qualifications. You don't ask for prices from all of them. You ask for prices from the one at that moment who appears most qualified, most capable, and can do the project in the time that you ask. And then prepare a report, go through PSAC, FAC, and the board. I think we'd be doing well to do it in 60, 90 wouldn't surprise me, days.
Hey, man, I don't see Jeff DeGula here. Oh, is he here? What are you doing sneaking around behind me? Hey, what are you doing sneaking around behind me? Have we qualified any other engineering firms?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
You thought 90 to 120? I thought 60 would be blazing, but somewhere in there.
Can we, I'd like to request that we head down that path, just to have another firm that we can, not that we're going to necessarily bid everything to both, but have a second opinion on some things, or, because to the point about testing, we haven't agreed to pay them to remodel our system, which
Nope.
they would have to do in order to take into account all the improvements. And again, that's, hasn't come up for a vote.
John, in that space, the remodeling of the system is a data input issue. They've already got the system modeled. All you're going to do is change the volume inputs and pressures at different points in the system, which are provided by TAS at the south end of the village and the 4 connection main meter points that we have from LUB with their flows. And that's not even with the improvements that LUB is getting ready to make with their new water treatment facility. So the modeling for them should be a half-a-day task at most.
But wouldn't they have to then test that model with pressure testing all over the system?
You can do that, and actually, you can get those numbers from LUB at the meter points. Now, you can go back. The model doesn't actually test pressure locally. It works off at hydraulic grade elevation and the GIS map that we have. That's what the model does. The actual testing, I doubt that they even did that in reality the first time. We can do it ourselves in-house. The fire department has the tools. Kevin has the tools, and we can go to the high points on the meters or on the in the village, at least for the water system.
Right.
And that's something that we could model ourselves and look at it pretty easily. Check your fire flows pretty quick. We just did a couple of flushings that you saw the results of that when I sent it out. And there's opportunity there that we can take the data from LUB, plug it into the model. They've got, Jacobs already has the model flow from TAS at 1,600 gallons a minute in one of their reports that they told us that they didn't add into the flow model. So there's opportunities there that if we want them to model it again, tell them, hey, put the 1,600 in from TAS that we can get and model it with the new LUB contract. And if LUB is not fulfilling their contract, that's a separate discussion with them.
Could another engineering firm take the LUB model, or would they be forced to duplicate it?
It's not an LUB model, it's our model. LUB doesn't care about our system once it gets to the 4 metering points. Now, TDEC, and Gary, you may know this, does TDEC have a model of our, they should have a model of our water system someplace because it had to get approved.
The TDEC in terms of the design or the lines?
The line size and stuff, and Tierney probably has it.
Yeah, they're supposed to have it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's separate thoughts.
Yeah, not all this is pertinent to this particular decision point. Marty, we haven't heard from you.
There's probably a reason for that. I always defer to Matt and PSAC because they're the experts on this. And I was going to turn it back to Matt and said, what does he recommend?
Look, the idea of a life after Jacobs, I mean, I'll state straight away, I care about the projects. The engineering firm, to me, I'm sitting here telling you this is fairly basic stuff, okay? So what engineer designs it, at the end of the day, if they're responsive, they do a good job, they hit the deadlines, and they're reasonable on cost, to me, it is what it is. I don't care that much. I'm sitting here today recommending Jacobs because I get pulled in 2 ways. One way is, hey, you've got development coming in Kahiti, you got 3 overflows already in your rolling 12-month period, and there's 200 and some days left. Hurry up, get moving. And then I get pulled the other direction, which is, I don't know about Jacobs anymore. Is there a better life? I'm sorry, I don't mean to gesturing towards you. It's just, you just happen to be on this side. Okay, yeah, that's what it was. And so, I mean, honestly, guys, from a staff perspective, I care about the projects. I care about the process. I care about people staying informed. I care about having qualified people. At the end of the day, if it's like, no, it's time to move on from Jacobs, I'm probably going to see you in 60 to 120 days with something that looks just about like that. Cost-wise, if I had to make a guess to say, hey, new engineering firm, here's the scope we want, here's the process we want. You know, if 60 to 120 days is something you're willing to sacrifice, I don't care that much. I really don't. I've had a very good experience with Jacobs. I probably in my career have dealt with easily a dozen, maybe 20 consulting engineering firms. I got no qualms with Jacobs, but if the board direction is it's time to head in a different direction, look, we can march. I really don't care. It really comes down to staff being in a situation of hurry up, get it done fast, the overflows, the development, versus I don't know about Jacobs anymore. So this one was the one that since the February board meeting I could get back fastest to you. Is this a sword I'm going to jump on? No.
So it doesn't make sense to move forward with Jacobs on this, but also pre-qualify another
Yeah.
engineering firm in the process.
It's a good question, and here's the only thing about pre-qualifying. If you buy, and I agree, this is kind of a test case. This is a bit of an experiment to see how this goes. If you potentially, and I'm not saying you have to, but if you potentially waited till about May to say, the design is done, we're comfortable, it feels good, it looks like it's going to work fine, everything is confirmed, me going out and doing a pre-qualification process in 2025 and saying, I want to know who your team is, I want to know what your schedule is, I want to know who's going to be working on the project, and then never even use them until potentially first or second quarter of 2026, there's no point in the matter. I mean, engineering firms, people come, people go, could be a new team, they could be snowed over with projects, and I may be going, I thought we had a good one, but we don't. If the direction from the board is, hey, it's time to cut the cord, okay, I don't care. I care about the projects. But trying to pre-qualify somebody now that you may not even have another conversation with till first or second quarter of 2026, I don't know how strategic that is.
Well, but it also sounds like there's risk involved, changing horses right now,
Yeah.
especially if timing is a big concern.
Well, yeah, I think that's the risk is we're at 3. If we have 5, we're in trouble. And we wait 120 days to start over. Well, we have a motion and a second. I think it's time to put it up for a vote. Do we approve Jacobs at full design cost of $240 or not? All those in favor? I guess only for expediency, I would say yes, otherwise I wouldn't. But I think the risk analysis is I don't want to wait 120 days to start somebody on the design process when this could be done almost half that time, so. It passes 4-1.
On to the next. Whoops, going the wrong way. Oh. All right, I think I exempted some slides, so I'm just going to talk about it real quick. So you're aware we had an opening for a garage installed at the Chota Rec Center. We have been in the process of deliberating, and in fact, we don't want a garage, and we intend to fix the wall. We have been through the process, we got 3 quotes. Mashburn Construction was the low bid. We had all three contractors visited the site once, sometimes twice. And I think the only reason, given the threshold on this, that it either deserves an honorable mention or a second, it's up to you, is we're proceeding on the vehicle operator's insurance, who is going to reimburse the invoices once we get into it. We've made real clear to the insurance company, hey, this is a bit of a renovation of sorts. We got to do some demolition before we know the grand scope of what's going to be done. We've scoped it as best we can. The estimated quote from Mashburn is $16,775. Could be more, could be less, but we're spending operational funds until such time that we get insurance proceeds in.
And I think the only reason this is on the list is because it's unbudgeted.
It is unbudgeted.
So, and a couple other key points that you made, just to head off, number one, the color match on the mortar will not be perfect,
No,
cannot be made perfect,
no.
but it's,
Look better than it is now.
it's gonna be better than it is now. And we want to get this done
Yes,
so that we get Chota back fully operational.
yes.
The other key point, I think, is we don't know with 100% certainty the scope of this project until you begin taking stuff off and you see if there's additional structural damage that right now you can't determine because you can't see it.
That's exactly right. Some interior drywall demolition is going to tell the whole story.
So with that, I will make a motion that we authorize an amount not to exceed $16,775 to repair the damaged wall at the Chota Rec Center with the full understanding that we expect reimbursement from the incidents insurance company.
Guys, I've got to abstain from voting on this one. I have financial ties to Mashburn. So that's, family, how about family ties? How's that? So I'm going to abstain from voting on this.
All those in favor of repairing Chota? 4001.
Simon's up, and I'm excited to leave this chair. I've had enough fun for today. Here's the clicker, it's easy. No one struggles with it.
Thank you.
Doesn't come with instructions?
I'm excited to get Chota fixed too, trust me. Oh. I don't want to do that. I don't have a thing up here now.
You don't have us.
All right, I guess you guys have it in hand then. So what I'm talking about, guys, my brief presentation here is accumulation of a year process. We don't just go into this lightly. It starts with going with the PREC and our staff and looking at what are our priorities for the next year? What do we need to be accomplishing? For example, with the business plan, and then we come into the budget process. And we get approved through the budget process for what we want to have. And one of the biggest items was our tennis courts. And the issue that we have are the courts at Chota. We have 4 courts over at Chota. We have Court 1, which is by itself. We have Courts 2 and 3, which are combined. And the last one is Court 4. Okay? So it's not just a matter of, they don't look so good. We want to get them fixed. It's to the point where we're going to have some trip hazards. We got some real problems out there. They're aging 25, 30 years between them. We've got a lot of life out of those. So it's time to get them fixed, and we were approved in the budget to get them fixed. There's several different ways to have them fixed. And the first one is what we did with Kahiti, with those courts, and the ones we did at Wellness, and that's you put a 2-inch overlay of brand-new asphalt. Now, when you do that, you fill the cracks, and then you put a mesh on top of it, and that takes some of the reflection of when it starts to crack again. It takes some of that away. Then you have 2 inches on top of that. The other method is called the slip sheet method, and when they do with that, same deal, they put the crack fill in it, they put the mesh on top of that, then they put 4 inches of rock, of gravel, and then on top of that, you got 2 inches of asphalt, so you got about 6 inches that goes up over your court.
The benefit of that is the potential for it to, if a crack starts coming back up through, it can dissipate through those rocks. So we researched that to see, is that the best method to look at? What's the best way to go with this? In order to take a look at expectations there, nobody is going to warranty that you're not going to have a crack. They won't do that. If they did, things would be different. I would go for a certain way. What we found is industry standard, 10 to 15 years, both methods. I get some folks tell me that, well, when you do the gravel, then you have a better benefit to go longer. But I have nothing in writing, and they won't give me anything to say that we guarantee this. So I look at, it makes sense to me, why would we spend that much money when I don't know for sure? So we got four quotes on this. One couldn't do it because they weren't licensed in the area. The other didn't want to mess with this. We had Sports Services to do our last one, but their bid came back in, if I go with the 2 inches, it was almost $300,000, and that doesn't include fencing. Okay, and then the other one goes with baseline, and that's 2 inches, and that's with fencing. Okay, not just talking about a little bit of fencing. Now, baseline, I've worked with them through my profession for probably 25, 30 years. And it's not like I'm going to hook up my buddy, we're going to get my buddy, and he's going to get it. That's not how I operate. I wouldn't be doing the same thing I'm doing now. It's like Joe talked about, is a relationship with professional folks and how they do things. The other part, one of the things you get with me with throughout the state, I know everybody, all the different directors, and we talk. And if we got a company that does crappy work, we discuss that. And we say, how's this guy do? How's that one do? These guys are very reputable. I couldn't get them last time because they had all kinds of money from COVID and all these municipalities to where they had tons of work. They said, we can't touch it. I asked them this time around, and yeah, we're in. All right. And he actually built the courts down there at Chota. He can go back and tell you, yep, 30 years ago when we did this over here, there was this. Over here, we did this part, we had this problem. This is what they did with the fence, and I'm like, this is really good. I asked for his input. Again, they got 4 courts there. The 4th court was, the question was, do we really need to do something to this court? His answer was no. There's no cracks on it. There's not a demonstration of cracks coming. Now, 2 years from now, if something starts showing up, there's no guarantee because they will crack. But he says, no, you don't need to be doing that. The more research I find, no, it doesn't need it. It just needs to have the acrylic on top where they put a sand base down, then you paint it. There's like 3 coats of paint and reline it. So with that being said, that takes the price way down. So we end up getting the 225, 765, and that's not just a matter of the fence that they got to pull out whenever they go in, because they go in with dump trucks, and they go through with the asphalt, and they come back out, and you have to pull that out and redo it. They will take and change the fence throughout the whole, all 4 courts. Some will be a sleeve that goes over top of it. If you take a look over there, it's rusted, it's messed up. It looks like at one point they spray painted it to try to fix it. This is redoing it to where it's going to have a black vinyl, which should last 25 years. And more importantly, aesthetically pleasing. We're going to have a brand new looking facility over there. So all that being said, my recommendation is going with the 225, 765 and having baseline come and do that. And this isn't just a matter of, this seems like a good idea, we're going to do this. We get a lot of people involved in it. We get the PRAC involved in it. I get with my FAC rep. I get with Mary Beth, who's taken our tennis up to like new heights, 2 to 3 times the kind of folks that were doing it in the past. I get with our procurement manager, and we also put this out in the public meeting with PRAC. So again, my recommendation is, and it's not a matter of, hey, wow, we're saving money, that's awesome. And then 2 years from now, we're like, we got crap for that. No, I feel really confident this is going to be a really good job that's done. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Holly, who's behind me here, who is our PRAC chair, for her comments.
Hi, everybody. Holly Seguin, Chairman of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. We, at the Parks and Rec meeting last week, we did discuss all these options and opened it up to public discussion, too. So anyone who was at the meeting was able to comment. And we unanimously supported Simon's recommendation. We do have the backing of the tennis club, too. They're the primary users of this. So we think this is a great idea, not only for some of the reasons that Simon said, but also because it's one vendor. We wouldn't have to go out and seek other bids for the fences, and no one can point fingers at the other one saying, oh, they messed up the fence, so now the courts don't work. Anyway, so we just think this is a really good option. Plus, they're here in Knoxville, so if anything happens, we know where they live. So we really support this, and we did take this to the Finance Advisory Committee last week, and they support this as well. So we're asking you to approve this request for $765.
So, Simon, correct me if I get this wrong. I will move that the board approve expenditure not to exceed $225,765 for a project with Baseline Sports Construction to re-asphalt 3 courts at Chota, repaint the 4th court, lines on the 4th court, and they are going to redo the fencing around all 4 courts at
Yes,
Chota.
sir, that's accurate.
Okay.
Can I let Mary Beth say something real quick? As the president of the tennis club?
Good afternoon, I'll be brief. I'm Mary Beth Krawchak, and I've been the tennis president for about a year. And in that year's time, we've worked very closely with the Parks and Rec, building a relationship, making it stronger, as well as building the tennis club. For those who thought tennis was dead, it is not here in Tellico Village. We grew at 68% last year from what we had the year before. With me is Roger Wessel and Carolyn Hanks. They're both board members. That's how important it was for us to be here. Thank you for even considering it, and go new courts.
And I guess just the context, because this similar project was done on the pickleball courts a couple of years ago, because we had arrived at a point in time, which is the case with 3 out of these 4 courts, they're developing cracks that, one, it becomes a safety issue. And secondly, if you don't spend the money now, you're going to spend more money later, because as you get weather, freezing and thawing in there, that's only going to make it more challenging to repair these going forward. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I can attest to the condition of those courts when they were being used for temporary pickleball courts 2 years ago. They were a trip hazard. So, any other comments from the board? All those in favor of approving? 5-0. Thank you,
very much.
Simon. And with that, we're down to just quick, we're actually, if you can believe it, a couple of minutes ahead of the schedule. Anything that any board members heard during their liaison sessions with other committees that is worthy of reporting to the general public?
Out of the CAC was the help spot changes.
Okay.
So I'll just mention, and I have to ask Simon, the Chota Pool, they've been working on getting that ready. So when's the open date for that?
I'm sorry.
The opening of the Chota Pool?
Opening of Chota Pool?
Yeah.
We should be on schedule for Memorial Day.
Do you know the date? The date?
Week before Memorial Day?
Oh, week before Memorial? All right, just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, what was been touched on before from an FAC perspective is, Judy mentioned, the 2024 financial audit is underway. That field work by the audit firm is ongoing. The FAC also has been engaged, getting ready for the reserve review here. And then thirdly, as you touched on, John, there is a significant amount of effort, not only with the staff, but there's also a couple of key FAC members tied in on the accounting system upgrade project, which will require an extensive amount of time and effort over the next 2 to 3 months to get across the goal line, to get that system implemented and up and running.
Yep. After 3 years of it being the number one priority, we're finally getting get over the goal line, hopefully in a couple months. Anything else? Okay.
There was one thing. Matt, do you want to talk about the Tanasi staff? Steve Schneider asked if you would talk about that. That Casey talked about in our directors meeting. Be Kind, the Be Kind campaign.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Casey Flanagan was relaying to us a story wherein at Tanasi, since it's under construction, not like a typical golf course where you can sort of go in and check in, wait for your group to come in. If you're playing amongst a group of 12, and certainly not betting, but if there was some gamesmanship at play. At a typical golf course, you can go out to the range, you can putt, you can do those kinds of things. At Tanasi, you're kind of stuck in the clubhouse. And there's just been a number of circumstances where people are anxious to get going, they're excited to get out to golf, but there's just not a whole lot to do. And people are getting upset, cantankerous with the starters, with the staff, and that kind of stuff. And our feeling is just simply, please, look, nobody loves construction. Nobody wants to be in that situation. Everything that the golf staff is doing is exactly their job, nothing more, nothing less. Construction or not, you got to stage tee times, you got to work people out through it. I know when you pull up in the parking lot, it can be quite a rodeo getting in and out of the facility. I totally get that, but where you have frustration, go outside, take a deep breath, stare at the sky, but golf staff is just not the place to take out frustration with, I'm ready to golf. So we all need careful reminders. I know patience is not something that I get congratulated on a lot, but we all understand it's how you deal with it, and the golf staff is not the place to be upset with or cantankerous with when you're excited to get going. So
One of the things that Casey also, just to add on to Matt, that golfers can really do to help is to carpool during this process until we get the other parking lot open. We're limited on parking, it's extremely tight. So take turns, pick up your friend, try to arrive together versus independently for the next few weeks, and that will greatly help the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I
With-
answered Marty's question. Before I even asked, Lewis, our assistant director, was online, sent that to May 19th.
May 19th is the opening of the Chota Pool. Okay. Got it. Well, if there's nothing else, entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.